The shifting of the age. The time is approximately 150 years in the future, and a wrinkled head sits in a large jar on a throne made from the skulls and bones of rebels. The head serves as government for what little remains of the world. The head bubbles angrily in its jar. It's viewing hour, and the government is restless. The translator opens a panel in the ceiling, and a giant view screen descends, suspended over the jar. Hidden speakers crackle to life in the walls, filling the room with sounds of suffering, as a scene of violence fills the screen. Hope, a middle-aged woman, had become too weak and sick to produce any more babies. And earlier that day, the head had issued orders to have her 12 children stab her to death. "I trust this meets with your satisfaction, your beneficence," the translator says numbly in his dry British accent. The voice of the government is heard clearly in the mind of the translator. "Go now, I am weary." Cut to a gray windowless dorm room, identical to all the others that make up the foundation of the world. A young boy sits on the edge of a bed, looking up at an old man. "Tell me about the old days, Grandpa," he pleads for the umpteenth time. "Maybe some other time. We need our rest after all." "But I'm not tired, and I like hearing about how it used to be," he complains. "Oh, all right," says the grandpa, and he begins to tell the story. "Well before your time, there were miraculous things called planes and cars and trees. I had a garden once." "What did you grow in your garden?" asks the boy. He's heard the story many times, but to him it never gets old. "I grew crunchy carrots deep in the soil, and I grew crisp peas on tall vines, and I grew sweet-smelling flowers like snapdragons and daisies." "What happened to the carrots and the peas and the flowers?" asks the boy, one of his favorite questions. "It was something in the air that did it. Things just started dying. The plants would look drier and drier by the day, and no amount of water seemed to help. The animals went next. I think it was hunger mostly. People rioted to claim what packaged food was still available. Then it started sending us messages." "What's it, Grandpa?" "It, the head, the government, this—" He fights his curses down and manages to maintain composure. "It chose its messenger, and we listened, because we were desperate and dying from lack of nutrition. In fact, most of us had already been killed in the riots. It gave us food and water, on the condition that the people worked together to build 12 identical buildings to live out the rest of our lives in. It said we would live in comfort, that we would never have to work or have war. It was wrong, though. We work for it now, and we are its army. The government controls all now, and we only live to serve it, and give up the lives of our children to serve as well. The head is God, our tyrannical savior, and we are powerless to resist its demands." Tears shine in the old man's eyes as he concludes, and soft whimpering can be heard from the bed above his. The young boy's mother is crying in her sleep. Meanwhile, in the translator's quarters, situated above the chamber of the head. The half-mad translator scribbles feverishly on sheets of paper. He's the only one who has access to paper, by special order of the government. Younger generations are unaware of its existence. But since everyone still has a desperate urge to chronicle the past and the present, citizens use the blood of the freshly dead or dying. It's always in abundant supply any time of the year. And in every dorm room, there are countless markings on every conceivable surface. To cope with his daily burden, the translator repeatedly chronicles the events leading up to the apocalypse and his accidental role in the New World Order, or the shifting of the age, as citizens call it. I answered the loud knocking at the door of my laboratory, and 2 government officials stepped in. I did not know them, but assumed they were representatives of the department funding my work. "Have you perfected your neural preservation solution?" one asked bluntly. Startled, I explained that while I had tested the solution intravenously on myself to no ill effect, we had not yet had a successful trial with the deceased subject. "I am hopeful that with the latest modifications, the solution will be successful on the next attempt," I said. "We have your first subject with us, one of critical importance. On successful revival, your laboratory will receive a 20-year contract with our department, limitless funding." They wheeled a covered gurney into the room. "Who is it?" I asked. "Just use it with the utmost care." And they left. My solution is unable to preserve bodies, only heads. And as I told the officials, I had never attempted to revive a deceased person. The prospect of separating the head from the body was daunting, but I steeled my resolve and prepared the subject. I then poured a portion of my latest formula into a jar, ready to place the patient inside. As I was shaving the head, I noticed a peculiar wound, exposing a small portion of brain. I assumed this to be the cause of death. Thinking nothing of it, I placed the head inside the jar and tightly sealed the lid. The translator begins shaking and muttering profuse apologies. "Look at this life of ill-gotten luxury. I deserve to be punished for what I've done," he cries aloud. "This solution has kept me ageless and healthy when I should be dead and rotting." In a fit of hopeless rage, he tears his paper to shreds.